Yes, the lightsaber duel. The climax of nearly every single Star Wars episode. A duel of light and dark, pitting the best Jedi and Sith against one another. Lightsaber combat is an art form, a symbol of Jedi traditions, and a reflection of a user's connection to the Force. By the time of the Star Wars films, there are 7 main classic lightsaber combat forms which Force users practiced. Today, we'll be explaining all 7 and outlining some of the most notable practitioners of each one. It's important to note that while Jedi often focused on one form, they would occasionally incorporate the odd move from another. Some of the most powerful Jedi and Sith even mastered the use of all 7, such as Yoda, Palpatine, and Mace Windu, as well as others like Temple Battlemaster Sindrellic. The cyborg General Grievous also was taught all 7 of the forms. With that in mind, this is the 7 forms of lightsaber combat explained. We begin with Form 1, Shii-Cho, also known as the Determination form. Form 1 was developed within the transitional period of the Jedi Order from metal swords to the modern lightsaber. The form catered to the time period, establishing basic movements and target zones for the new weapons. As the most basic form of lightsaber combat, this made it the perfect one to be taught to all Jedi younglings from an early age. Since Shii-Cho was effectively an experimental form and wasn't created during the times of the Sith and Dark Jedi posing a real threat, it did not address lightsaber on lightsaber combat and was quickly replaced by Form 2. However, Shii-Cho still found a niche as a training form, with almost every lightsaber user receiving some instruction on it. In combat, the Determination form was raw and wild, primarily aimed towards disarming rather than injuring opponents. Shii-Cho was not typically the form that Jedi would use as their go-to, but would fall back on it when no other style would do against a given opponent. That being said, at the hands of a true master, Shii-Cho could be fluid but highly randomized and unpredictable. A Form 1 specialist who lived during the Clone Wars was Jedi Master Kit Fisto. The Nautolan High Council member was regarded as possessing some of the finest dueling skills in the Jedi Order. Fisto was even able to apply Shii-Cho to use 2 lightsaber blades at once, getting the better of General Grievous. He was even able to outlast Aegon Kolar and Saesee Tiin against Darth Sidious, blocking multiple attacks before ultimately falling. Form 2, Makashi, or the Contention form, was developed for the specific purpose of lightsaber on lightsaber dueling, addressing perhaps Form 1's most significant weakness. Makashi was a more graceful style, relying on controlled strikes rather than power and strength. There are plenty of well-known Form 2 practitioners, including the likes of Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi, Asajj Ventress, and the Grand Inquisitor. But if the form had one true master, it was none other than Count Dooku. We explained Dooku's proficiency with Form 2 in our recent video where we broke down why exactly he is such a deadly lightsaber duelist. Makashi was at its best when used against a single opponent with a single blade, but allowed more skilled users like Dooku to hold their own against multiple challengers at once. Before the re-emergence of the Sith through Darth Maul, very few Jedi practiced Makashi, since it was geared towards lightsaber on lightsaber combat, but didn't address projectiles like blasters as proficiently as combat styles like Form 3. Form 3, Soresu, or the Resilience form, focused more on defense than attack, and was developed as blasters became more prevalent throughout the Star Wars galaxy. Central to Soresu's technique was a lightsaber's ability to deflect blaster bolts, and with practice, to reflect them back at an attacker. Practitioners also extensively focused on blocking and parrying lightsaber strikes, allowing one to withstand numerous opponents. Soresu's most notable practitioner, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, put this to use against General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith. Luminara Unduli was another respected Form 3 user, who passed her teachings on to her Padawan Barriss Offee. Depa Billaba also favored Soresu. Form 3 practitioners had to focus entirely on defense, committing all mental resources to examine every move their enemy made. A Soresu master prepared to take full advantage of their enemy's most exploitable opening, which most often came about as a result of physical exhaustion or mental frustration. Form 4, Ataru, or the Aggression form, was an acrobatic combat style that exceeds a lot of energy and requires above average force sensitivity to truly master. In contrast to Form 3, Ataru focused almost entirely on offense, its practitioners seeking to end a fight as quickly as possible, instead of outlasting their foe. Practitioners employed leaps and somersaults to attack an enemy from many unexpected directions. The acrobatic techniques of Ataru utilize the Force in ways much more obvious than other lightsaber combat forms. A Form 4 master moved with lightning speed, delivering a barrage of lightsaber strikes too fast for the unaided eye to follow. The form was incredibly physically demanding, and although the Force would help to counteract physical exertion, it could be draining in its own way. Ataru was favored by none other than Jedi Grandmaster Yoda, but was also employed by the likes of Aayla Secura and Qui-Gon Jinn, who was somewhat more limited with his speed and acrobatic abilities as he aged. Form 5 was known by two distinct primary disciplines, Shien and Djem. Djem was based on defending with solid blocks and parries, then immediately countering with strong counterattacks. The form was geared towards lightsaber-on-lightsaber combat, but remained effective with blaster bolt deflection. The most well-known user of the Djem variant of Form 5 was the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. He would use this form both during his time with the Jedi Order, as well as the Sith Lord, Darth Vader. The Shien variant of Form 5 was used by Skywalker's Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. It favored the use of the less common reverse lightsaber grip. Form 5 maintained many of the defensive techniques of Soresu, but instead actively sought to create an opening for attack. Practitioners had to always be ready to spring to the attack from a defensive position, but also return to protection when momentum was running low. While Shii-Cho and Ataru forced the situation, and Soresu waited patiently for an opportunity, Shien and Djem both sought to control the momentum of a battle, cleverly using whatever circumstances arose to their advantage. Form 6, Niman, could be used to combine double-bladed lightsaber combat with other Force abilities like pushes and lifts. Niman was mastered by Darth Maul, who employed it in his duel with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Naboo. Form 6 was the last to gain widespread acceptance in the Jedi Order. Niman largely eclipsed the other forms in popularity, in many ways becoming the new standard for Jedi Knights, seen as the result of the natural progression of lightsaber combat. Form 6 represented the synthesis of previous forms. By balancing the various approaches of the previous 5, it became a well-rounded way to avoid the weaknesses of the others, but however failed to reach their full strengths, leading many Jedi to see it as diluted. A Form 6 user was a jack of all trades, but a master of none, if you will. Finally, we have Form 7, known as the Ferocity form, which has two distinctions, Juyo and Vaapad. Form 7 was considered the most aggressive and unpredictable of the 7 classic forms of lightsaber combat. It relied on emotion, and therefore was not widely accepted by the Jedi Order, often being reserved for the Sith. Let's begin with the Juyo variant. We'll get to Vaapad in a moment. Juyo's development began from rejected Shii-Cho techniques in the earliest days of the Jedi Order. Eventually, the methods would be recognized by the High Council, who would ban its use. Juyo was even more aggressive than Ataru. It utilized a highly aggressive offense, but it required the practitioner to actively draw upon their anger and negative emotions to fuel the relentless assault. Therefore, its use was seen as a direct violation of the Jedi Code's rules against passion and chaos. Many Jedi who practiced the form fell to the dark side or came very close to doing so. Thus, Form 7 would never again be practiced by Jedi, save those who received express permission from the Council or who defined their will. Darth Sidious was at his deadliest when using Form 7. The sole variation of Form 7 to have gained recognition by the Council was Vaapad. This variation was created in the final decades before the Great Jedi Purge by Jedi Master Mace Windu. Windu developed Vaapad to address his weakness by controlling his inner darkness and channeling it into worthy ends. Practitioners of Vaapad drew on their anger and passion, but never gave in to them, compared with the other lightsaber forms, which directed users to master their emotions. Even Windu himself was wary of allowing others to study Vaapad outside of his own Padawans, like Depa Billaba. The Revenge of the Sith novelization describes Vaapad as, quote, "Vaapad is as aggressive and powerful as its namesake, but its power comes at great risk. Immersion in Vaapad opens the gates that restrains one's inner darkness. To use Vaapad, a Jedi must allow himself to enjoy the fight. He must give himself over to the thrill of battle, the rush of winning. Vaapad is a path that leads through the Numbra of the dark side. But that about does it for our breakdown of the 7 classic forms of lightsaber combat. Which of the 7 forms is your favorite, and which one would you choose if you were a Jedi or a Sith? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to drop a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you are new to stay up to date with our Star Wars content. Until next time, Red Squadron, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you. Red 5 standing by.